This segment of Delmarva Life is brought to you by Peninsula Regional Medical Center.
Secretary of State Hillary Clinton returned to work last week after a series of medical mishaps landed her in the hospital with a blood clot on the brain. This is her leaving the hospital with her daughter Chelsea and husband, former President Bill Clinton. Hillary staff members welcomed her back. Take a look at this. She got her own football helmet and she also got a jersey with the number 112. The significance there is that's the number of countries that she has visited since becoming Secretary of State. While they had some fun with Hillary, her health issue was really no laughing matter. According to reports, Clinton became dehydrated during a bout with the flu, passed out, bumped her head, the blood clot discovered during an MRI. Clinton's doctors say the Secretary of State is expected to make a full recovery, but blood clots on the brain can have serious and even deadly consequences. For instance, David Bloom, you see him here with his family. April marks 10 years since the NBC network reporter died suddenly. He had deep vein thrombosis, which became a pulmonary embolism. So joining us this afternoon with a little more perspective is Dr. James Burns with PRMC's Occupational Health and Urgent Care. Thank you for joining us. Great to have you back again. Sure. Now, the doctors say Clinton had a cerebral venous thrombosis. That sounds pretty serious.
Yeah, and kind of unusual as well. And it's a testament to the clinical astuteness and our technology that they actually found that with either a CT scan or an MRI. It's actually not in the brain substance, but in the veins of the dura, or the lining of the brain.
Wow.
So, found in head trauma, can be found in certain, in pregnancy under certain circumstances as well, too. Not very common, though, not a very common one.
So is the MRI that they did for her, is that kind of routine with a head injury?
Typically, yeah, it would be useful in a head trauma where there was a loss of consciousness or an altered level of consciousness or a seizure or some sort of a neurologic complication, yes.
So those are some of the symptoms that you might want to look for if that's a thought?
Yes, yeah.
The seizures can be an issue?
Seizures, yeah, absolutely, yes.
Okay. Well, long-term effects?
Actually, once you develop a clot in a vein, any vein in your body, it is more prone to clotting again because it sets up an injury pattern. And so you have to be rather cautious about your follow-ups and get very close follow-ups.
Okay, now you don't have to fall to get this kind of a blood clot, right?
Not necessarily, no. And again, it's not a very common one, so I don't want to raise an unnecessary scare with people.
Right. But again, you mentioned something that's really important as far as symptoms. Be specific about the things that perhaps we should be looking for if something like this could be happening to us.
And we're talking about a brain or?
The clots that could really cause us the problems. So we're talking primarily the legs.
Yeah, right? Yeah, that's really what we're talking about. Mr. Bloom, who succumbed to a pulmonary emboli, by way of definition, a thrombus, deep vein thrombus, is a clot. An embolus is a clot with a passport. It moves, it goes places, okay? And that's what we're trying to avoid, is that one. Now, the blood clots in the leg, to put this in perspective, 1 to 2 per 1,000 per year. Now, put that in a bigger perspective, 315 million people in the United States as a 2011 census. We're talking 300,000 to 600,000 people per year, okay, that develop these clots in their legs.
Okay.
A full 25% of them succumb to this mortality data in 5 years. So that's 25%. 45% of these people will actually go on to have recurrent symptoms. So these numbers just keep adding up. So it's a huge problem. And it's people that are more prone to that are people that are sedentary or post-operative from fractures of the lower extremities or so forth, or major abdominal surgeries. Obesity is one. And then there are certain hypercoagulable disorders that are not very common, but they're there anyhow. So now, and the major complication is not necessarily the clot in the leg, it's when it moves and it goes basically to the lung or it can go to the brain as well.
And that's when it can become serious. So if the doctor is telling us we need to pay attention as to whether or not this is actually a threat, then we need to be careful.
Exactly, yeah. Fortunately, the leg clots are easily detectable with ultrasound, which is not an invasive procedure and not a dangerous one and a relatively cheap one, as opposed to the brain clots. So anybody who suspects, and it's a rather elusive diagnosis sometimes, it's not very easy to pick up. The classic signs are swelling, pain, redness in one of your extremities. Yeah. And at that point, you should have an ultrasound to eliminate that as the possibility before you move on to other diagnoses.
So if it hurts, I need to tell the doctor.
If it hurts and it's swollen, yeah, and it's tender to touch, you should see somebody immediately.
Are there any other triggers, like you had mentioned before, that?
Well, certain malignancies, cancers can create changes in blood clots. Intravenous catheters can damage the lining of certain veins, causing a superficial venous thrombosis and not necessarily deep. Typically, the surgeries, obesity, sedentary, people that just sit on the couch like us and do nothing.
Yeah.
That's a setup for blood clots in legs.
So a big thing now for fashion is these skinny jeans. Can your clothing be too tight and actually cause you problems?
Yeah, you can. You can get some tight clothing that can cause some stasis. However, some of the superficial veins are superficial venous thrombosis is actually treated and avoided by using more tight, uniform tight leggings and so forth. So they can be beneficial, but they can be dangerous as well.
Dr. Burns, thank you so much. Some great information there.
You bet.
Appreciate that very, very much. Well, if you'd like more information on blood clots, all you have to do is go to delmarvalife.com. There you're going to find a link to PRMC's website, which has more on the causes and the risk factors of blood clots. You know, another way to stay healthy is keeping at a healthy weight. And from gym memberships to expensive meal replacement products, we really spend a lot of money trying to shed pounds. Do you know what's really in all of that diet food? Well, up next, Lisa will speak with an author who says you need to kick your fake food habit and kickstart your weight loss. Now, speaking of weight loss, you still have time to get today's Delmarva Life Daily Deal. Today's deal, 50% off a weight loss body wrap treatment, plus a free Cool Sculpt consultation from Renove Med Spa in Rehoboth Beach. Now, don't forget, you can get the daily deal on delmarvalife.com or download the free Delmarva Life Daily Deal app for your iPhone, iPad, or Android, and get all of our great deals right there in the palm of your hand. Delmarva Life will be right back.